Alright guys, today we're going to be talking about graphing using intercepts. I apologize for my voice. I'm going to do the best that I can. Our learning target is I can graph a function using x and y intercepts and can identify x and y intercepts given a graph. Okay, so make sure you picked up the reteach worksheet out of the blue tray on my desk so that you can take notes on that. Alright, so here we go, the reteach worksheet. Example 1 says state the x and y intercepts of 3x plus 2y equals 6, then graph the function. Alright, so step 1, find the x-intercept. Very important right here. We need to find the x-intercept. We're going to let y equal 0. Okay, so I'm going to let the opposite variable equal 0, and then I'm going to solve. So notice, right here, let me get my highlighter back. Right here, they're going to fill in a 0 for y. So 3x plus 2 times 0 equals 6. Working that out, 2 times 0 is just 0. So 3x plus 0 just gives me 3x. And then that last step is just to divide by 3. So when I divide by 3, I get x equals 2. Alright, so that tells me that my x-intercept is going to be a positive 2. Alright, moving down to step 2 to find the y-intercept. Very important here. Just like on the x-intercept, I'm going to let the opposite variable equal 0. So to find the y, I'm going to let x equal 0. Okay, so if you notice, they do 3 times 0 plus 2y equals 6. 3 times 0 just gives me 0. So 0 plus 2y is still just 2y. Lastly, dividing by 2, I get y equals 3. So that tells me that my y-intercept is actually going to be 3. Okay, positive 3. Here's where they filled in their 0. Alright, now, once we have our x and our y-intercept, we found that our y-intercept is going to be 3, and we found that the x-intercept is 2. So all I'm going to do, come over here to my graph. For y equals 3, I'm going to go up to 3 on the y-axis. Remember, my y-axis is vertical. And then for x equals 2, I'm going to look at my x-axis, go over to the right 2, put a dot. I now have my 2 points, so I could draw my line and put my arrows, just like they had. Alright, so let's actually work one out. We'll look at number 1 first. We've got 3x plus 5y equals negative 15. So to find an x-intercept, we need to let y equal 0. Alright, so we've got our equation, 3x plus 5y equals negative 15. So now I want y to be 0. So 3x plus 5 times 0. So instead of that y, I'm filling in a 0. Well, I know that anything times 0 is 0. So in that next line, I can just say that's 0. 3x plus 0 just gives me a 3x. Make sure as you're bringing this down, you don't lose your negative. And then my last step is to divide by 3. All right, remember, when I've got that multiplication, to undo it, I'm going to divide. So that tells me that x is negative 5. Okay, x is negative 5. All right, finding my y-intercept, I'm going to do the opposite and let x equal 0. All right, so my equation, 3x plus 5y equals negative 15. Filling in a 0 for x, 3 times 0 plus 5y equals negative 15. 3 times 0 is 0. So 0 plus 5y equals negative 15. Well, 0 plus 5y just gives me 5y. Just like on the other, my last step is to divide by 5. So I get y equals negative 3. Okay, y equals negative 3. Now, we've got to graph these. Okay, so we got that x equals negative 5. So that means on my x-axis, I need to go to negative 5. So that'd be left 5, which would be this point right here. All right, for my y-intercept, we got negative 3. So on my y, I'm going to come down to -3, put a dot. My last step, draw a line through those 2 points and put arrows on the ends. All right. If you need to go back, rewatch that one again, feel free to go back. Number 2, on this one for x-intercept, we're going to let y equal 0. So our equation, we have -2x plus y equals 8. Well, this one's a little bit easier actually because I'm just adding in that plus 0. I know that -2x plus 0 is just -2x. And then last step, excuse me, make sure you divide by -2. Positive divided by a negative is a negative. So x is -4. All right, finding a y-intercept. I'm going to let x equal 0. So I've got that equation, -2x plus y equals 8. -2, instead of x, I'm filling in a 0. Plus y equals 8. -2 times 0 is 0. 0 plus y would just give me y. So that actually immediately gives me my answer, y equals 8. Now, notice on this graph, they are counting by 2's. Okay, so let's do our x first. So we got x equals -4. So each line actually counts as 2. So that means I only scoot over to right here, because that first line would be -2 and then -4. For my y-intercept, I'm going all the way up to 8. 2, 4, 6, 8. So that's actually going to be right here. Okay, because I'm counting by 2's. Drawing my line, putting my arrows. All right, and then I'm finished with number 2. Last one, number 3. For number 3, now we've got some negatives here, so we've got to be really careful. For our x-intercept, let y equal 0. It really doesn't matter which one you find first. It's just personal preference. -4x minus 3y equals -12. Filling in a 0 for y. -4x minus 3 times 0 equals -12. Actually multiplying that out, -4x minus 0 equals -12. So -4x equals -12. Dividing by -4, I get x equals 3. All right, finding my y-intercept, I'm going to let x equal 0. All right, so we still got our same equation, -4x minus 3y equals -12. Filling in a 0 for x. -4 times 0 minus 3y equals -12. So that gives me 0 on the front end. 0 minus 3y just gives me a -3y equals -12. Dividing by that negative, I end up with x equals +4. All right, graphing this, they are counting by 1's. So graphing my x first, it tells me to go right to 3, put a dot. I'm sorry, I've messed this up. Over here, this should be a y. I don't know where I got that x from. All right, so for y, on my y-axis, I'm going to go up to 4. Put a dot at +4. Draw my line and add my arrows. Now you can get a ruler from my desk if you would like to help you draw some straight lines. All right, now this is not on your worksheet, but it's very important for you to actually look and take note of this. All right, so x-intercepts. X and y-intercepts. Now, when we talked about slope-intercept form, we've already talked about the fact that this right here at 1 is going to be my y-intercept. Okay, so my y-intercept is at +1. But what about my x-intercept? All right, my x-intercept is going to be wherever my line crosses my x-axis. So looking at that, my x-intercept is actually going to be in between 0 and -1, halfway, which would be -1/2. or negative 0.5. So if it asks you just to say what the x and y intercepts are, just look at your axis, the x and the y, and see where your line is crossing. All right, so looking at this one, it's a little bit easier to see. For my y-intercept, we know that that's going to be here, okay? And that's going to be at positive 4. So my y-intercept is at positive 4. Whoops. Positive 4. All right, my x-intercept, looking at this, my x-intercept would be right here. Okay, and on the x-axis, that would be at positive 2. So my x-intercept, where it crosses that x-axis, is at positive 2. All right, flip your notes sheet over. On the back is a skills practice worksheet. When you finish this skills practice worksheet, please turn it back in to Miss Bergreen, and we will talk more about this tomorrow.